The emergency room at Mercy General Hospital was in absolute chaos. 3 car accident victims arrived simultaneously as Claire Bennett, a 38-year-old, 250-pound nurse, ran between the gurneys with surgical precision. His fat, steady fingers hooked up heart monitors, adjusted IVs, and checked vital signs with a speed that made the residents look like amateurs. It was then that Dr. Marcus Holloway entered the room, tall, tanned, with that smile like the cover of a medical magazine and an ego the size of his $500,000-a-year salary. He watched Claire move among critical patients, saving lives with brutal efficiency, and decided this was the perfect time for a joke. "Claire!" he shouted, striding across the room. "I need urgent advice." She didn't even look. "I was intubating a patient with chest trauma." "Speak quickly, Holloway. I'm busy saving lives here." He approached, crossed his arms, and spoke loud enough for all the doctors, nurses, and residents to hear. "I'm trying to lose about 10 pounds before my wedding in Malibu. I thought you'd be the perfect person to give me tips on what not to do." Dead silence. Residents froze. A young nurse looked down. The radiology technician pretended not to have heard. Claire finished attaching the tube, checked the patient's vital signs, wiped her hands on her bloody apron, and finally looked at Marcus. His brown eyes showed no anger, no shame, just a dangerous calm that made his stomach drop for a second. 5 kilos, she repeated, her voice soft. "Interesting choice of number." Marcus laughed, thinking he had won. "Yeah, right. Nothing too radical. I just want to look perfect for magazine photos." Claire took 2 steps towards him, slowly, like someone who knows exactly the weight of each word they say. "Do you know how long it takes to lose 10 pounds of real fat, Marcus?" she asked, tilting her head. "Between 8 to 10 weeks. Balanced diet, consistent training, serious medical monitoring. But you don't want to know about that, do you?" He frowned. You wanted to make a joke, in front of everyone, using my body as a punchline." The room was so quiet you could hear the heart monitors beeping. Claire crossed her arms over the massive, blood-stained chest of the patient she had just stabilized and smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile that precedes earthquakes. "You know what's really funny, Dr. Holloway," she continued, turning to check another patient's vitals without missing a beat. "It's just that you spent 6 years in medical school, completed a cardiology residency, earn over $500,000 a year, and yet you can't calculate your body mass index without checking Google." Muffled laughter echoed from the corners of the room. Marcus's face turned red. "Hey, that was—" "As for me," Claire interrupted, adjusting a patient's IV with precise movements, "I went to nursing school paying for 3 jobs. My mother died of poorly treated diabetes because she didn't have health insurance. My father had a heart attack at 52, and I learned how to calculate cardiovascular risk, adjust medication, and save fat and thin lives, all while people like you made fun of my weight in the hallway." She finally stopped, turned completely towards him, and took 3 firm steps towards the doctor. His eyes didn't blink. "So here's my advice, doctor. If you want to lose 5 kilos before the wedding, cut your ego. That thing should weigh at least 10. The room erupted in suppressed laughter. A resident coughed to hide his laughter. The young nurse bit her lip, holding back laughter. Marcus froze, open mouth, face red as peppers. He tried to respond, but no words came out. Claire was already returning to patients, checking monitors, adjusting doses, saving lives as if nothing had happened. "Oh, and Marcus," she said without looking back, "patient in bed 7 has arrhythmia. You, as a brilliant cardiologist, should have noticed this 5 minutes ago, but you were busy doing stand-up comedy." He looked at the monitor. She was right. Clear cardiac arrhythmia on ECG. Marcus swallowed hard, muttered something unintelligible, and left the emergency room with hurried steps. In the following days, the story spread through the hospital like wildfire. The fat nurse who shut up Dr. Holloway became instant legend in the hallways, in the cafeteria, in the locker rooms. But Claire didn't care about gossip. She had 12-hour shifts, patients to care for, and bills to pay. Public humiliation was nothing new. Since adolescence, she has learned that the world reserves extra cruelty for those who dare to exist in a large body. What no one knew, not Marcus, not the colleagues, nor the hospital administration, was that Claire Bennett carried 3 secrets. The first, she had just been accepted into the master's program in hospital management at UCLA with a full scholarship. The second, she was about to publish a revolutionary paper on emergency protocols that could change national guidelines. And the third, well, this Marcus Holloway was going to find out in the worst way possible. Because 5 days after that episode in the emergency room, Claire received an email from the hospital board. Subject, urgent call, extraordinary administrative meeting. And the name of the doctor under ethics investigation was right there, in bold letters. Dr. Marcus Holloway. Claire closed the laptop slowly, took a deep breath and smiled. Revenge, she knew, didn't have to be quick. It needed to be surgical. If you're enjoying this story of turnaround and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will knock your socks off. 3 days after the public humiliation, Claire arrived for her night shift to find a note taped to her locker. Watch what you say, fatty. Some jokes are expensive. No signature. Angular, masculine letter. She crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash without blinking. 20 years of working in hospitals had taught a brutal lesson. Powerful men hate being humiliated by fat women. But the note was just the beginning. The following Monday, Claire was called into the office of the nursing supervisor, Linda Parsons, a thin woman in her 50s, with a permanently frowning face and the friendliness of a cactus. "Sit down," Linda ordered, without looking up from her paperwork. Claire obeyed, folding her hands in her lap. "I already knew where this was going." "I've received a formal complaint against you," Linda said, finally looking up. "From Dr. Marcus Holloway." Claire didn't blink. "About what?" "Inappropriate conduct, disrespect towards a senior doctor, creating a hostile work environment." Linda read each accusation with barely concealed pleasure. "He said you humiliated him in front of the entire emergency team." "I responded to a joke about my weight," Claire said, voice as calm as still water. "He used me for entertainment. I just paid him back in kind. It doesn't matter." Linda closed the folder with a dry click. "He's a respected doctor. You're a nurse. There's hierarchy here." Claire felt anger rise in her throat like bile, but she swallowed it back. "Losing your cool now would be the worst mistake. So I should accept public humiliation because he has a higher degree?" Linda sighed, as if she were explaining something obvious to a stupid child. "Claire, you're good at what you do, but you need to understand your place. Holloway can ruin your career if he wants. He has connections. You have extra pounds." The sentence hung in the air like toxic smoke. Claire was silent for a full 5 seconds. Then he got up, straightened his uniform, and looked Linda in the eyes. "Anything else?" "Yes. You are suspended for 3 days without pay, to reflect on professionalism." Claire left that office with her hands shaking, but not from fear, of fury. She crossed the hospital corridor like a tractor, ignoring the curious looks of her colleagues. Everyone already knew. Gossip travels faster than intravenous antibiotics. In the locker room, she met Vanessa Torres, a 28-year-old Filipina nurse, the only person there that Claire considered a true friend. "I heard what happened," Vanessa said, closing the door. "That's so fucking unfair. 3 days without pay because I hurt the ego of a spoiled doctor." Claire shoved things into the closet with excessive force. "Meanwhile, he can call me fat in front of everyone and nothing happens." Vanessa bit her lip, hesitant. "Claire, there's something you need to know." "What?" "Holloway is spreading lies about you, saying that you are incompetent, that you make serious mistakes, that you haven't been fired yet because the union protects you." Claire froze, holding the zipper of her bag in the air. "He's doing what?" "Yesterday he said in the doctor's room that you almost killed a patient by giving the wrong dose of morphine." Everyone heard. Claire's blood ran cold. This wasn't just personal revenge. It was professional sabotage. Marcus Holloway didn't just want to humiliate her. I wanted to destroy her. That night, Claire returned to her small, cluttered apartment in suburban Oakland, made herself chamomile tea, and opened her laptop. She wasn't going to let this go cheap. Not this time. 20 years of enduring jokes, disgusted looks, well-intentioned comments about health. 20 years of being treated like a second-class citizen for daring to exist in a large body. 20 years of swallowing humiliation with the excuse that it's just work, don't take it personally. But that was personal, and Marcus Holloway had just made the dumbest mistake of his career. He messed with the wrong person, because Claire Bennett wasn't just a fat, competent nurse. She had been an active member of the hospital's medical ethics committee for 3 years. He had direct access to the conduct files of all doctors, and for the past 6 months, he had been collecting information about irregularities at Mercy General, not for revenge, for justice. But now this information had a very specific target. Claire opened the digital folder labeled Emergency Protocol, Confidential Data, and began searching through the records, patient records, procedure reports, filed complaints, and there, buried among dozens of documents, she found it. Medical Incident Report, 2847, Dr. Marcus Holloway. She clicked, and what he read made his heart race. 3 months ago, Marcus Holloway had made a serious mistake during heart surgery, an artery severed by carelessness. The patient miraculously survived but spent weeks in the ICU. The case was hushed up, filed under unforeseen complication. No investigation, no punishment. Because Marcus was the darling of the board, the handsome doctor who appeared in magazines, the guy who brought $1 million donations from rich patients. Claire read the report 3 times, memorizing every detail. Then he opened a new tab and started typing. Subject: Request for review of medical conduct. Urgent protocol. She wasn't going to make an anonymous report. I wouldn't post it on social media. I wasn't going to make a cheap scandal. Claire Bennett was going to use the system, because she knew the rules better than any arrogant doctor, and he knew exactly how to turn them against him. The next morning, Marcus Holloway woke up to 47 unread messages, 3 from the hospital board, 5 from the legal department, 2 from the Regional Council of Medicine, all with the same subject: formal ethical investigation, mandatory attendance. He read the first message, and the blood drained from his face. Someone had requested a complete review of all their procedures over the past 2 years. Someone had attached detailed reports, surgery schedules, nurses' statements. Someone had done this by following every legal protocol to the letter, making it impossible to ignore or archive. And at the end of the official document, a single signature: Claire Bennett, RN, BSN, member of the Medical Ethics Committee. Marcus dropped his cell phone on the bed and ran his hand over his face. For the first time in his life, he felt truly afraid, because that fat nurse he humiliated in front of everyone wasn't just a fat nurse. He was the person with the power to end him, and she had just pulled the trigger. Claire spent the 3 days of her suspension in the most productive way possible. He didn't cry. He didn't complain on social media. He didn't waste time in self-pity. Instead, he turned his apartment into an investigation center. The living room table became a war archive. Stacks of printed documents, colorful post-its stuck to the wall forming a detailed timeline. Laptop open with 17 simultaneous tabs showing medical protocols, hospital records, and regulations from the Regional Council of Medicine. Claire knew something that Marcus Holloway would never learn. Strategic patience is worth more than explosive anger, and she had spent 3 years at the Ethics Committee just waiting for the right moment. On Wednesday afternoon, his cell phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Claire Bennett? The voice on the other end was masculine, formal, deep. This is Robert Chen from Mercy General's legal department. I need to speak to you in person. Today, if possible. Her heart raced, but her voice remained steady. About what? About the ethics review request you filed against Dr. Holloway. Apparently your request triggered an automatic internal investigation, and, well, other questions arose. Claire closed her eyes and smiled, exactly as she had planned. I can be there in an hour. Robert Chen's office was on the 8th floor of the hospital, far from the chaos of the emergency room. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, freezing cold air conditioning. He was an Asian American man of about 45 with impeccably combed gray hair, an expensive gray suit, and the tired eyes of someone who saw people lying every day. Sit down, please, he said, pointing to the chair in front of the table. Claire sat down, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. First rule of negotiation: whoever speaks first loses. Robert opened a thick folder, leafed through some papers, and sighed. You know you created a big problem, right? I followed protocol, Claire replied, voice calm. I requested an ethics review using official channels. I attached documented evidence. I completed all necessary forms. Yes, you did everything right, and that's exactly what's giving the board a headache. He leaned back in his chair, studying her face. Because now they can't. They simply want to archive it. You played by the rules, and the rules require formal investigation. Good. Then justice will be done. Robert gave a short, humorless laugh. Justice? Claire, you messed with Dr. Marcus Holloway, the guy who brought $5 million in donations to the hospital last year, the guy on the cover of the Stanford Medicine Review, the guy the board wants to promote to chief of cardiology. Claire didn't blink. The guy who almost killed a patient through negligence and had the case hushed up. Heavy silence. Robert closed the folder slowly, intertwined his fingers, and leaned his body forward. How did you find that out? I read reports. I do my job. I pay attention. Claire kept her gaze fixed. And I have an excellent memory. He watched her for long seconds, as if trying to decipher a code. You know he's going to come with everything against you, right? He's already spreading the word that you're incompetent, that you make up stories, that you have emotional problems. I know. And you still want to go through with it? Claire took a deep breath. He thought about his mother who died without adequate treatment, in the father who had a heart attack because an arrogant doctor ignored the symptoms. In my 20s, being treated as invisible, incompetent, a walking joke. I don't want to go through with this, Mr. Chen. I have to. Robert was silent, processing. Then he opened a drawer, took out another folder, this one much thinner, and slid it across the table. Before you leave, take a look at this. Claire opened it. It was an archived labor case from 2 years ago. Complainant, Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Accused, Dr. Marcus Holloway. Allegation, moral harassment, gender discrimination, hostile work environment. Claire read it quickly. Sarah Mitchell was a medical resident who worked under Marcus's supervision. She accused him of constant humiliation, misogynistic comments, and professional sabotage. The case was dismissed due to lack of conclusive evidence. But between the lines it was clear. She was pressured to give up. "Where is she now?" Claire asked. "Works at a community hospital in Nevada. Career destroyed, reputation ruined, because he tried to report the darling of the board." Claire closed the folder, handed it back to him and stood up. "Thank you for the information, Mr. Chen." "Claire." He also stood up, expression serious. "I can't help you officially, but unofficially, I'm rooting for you, because there are a lot of people in this hospital who are tired of seeing powerful people getting away with it." She nodded, shook his hand and left. That night, Claire did something she hadn't done in years. He called Vanessa and asked for help. They met in a small, quiet cafe 3 blocks from the hospital. Vanessa arrived with a worried expression, bag full of papers and flash drive in hand. "I got what you asked for," she said, pushing the flash drive across the table. "Copies of records from all of Holloway's surgeries over the last 2 years. Times, patients, results, complications." Claire grabbed the flash drive like someone holding a loaded gun. "Did anyone see you?" "No one. I have access to the system because I'm part of internal audit. Technically, it's not illegal for me to download this." Vanessa bit her lip. "But Claire, if they find out that I cheated on you, we'll be screwed together." "I know, and I'll never give you away, I promise." Vanessa held her hand across the table. "I trust you, and I'm also tired of him treating everyone like dirt, especially the nurses, especially the women." Claire squeezed her friend's hand back, feeling the weight of responsibility. She wasn't just fighting for herself. "I was fighting for Sarah Mitchell, the doctor who was silenced, for Vanessa, who suffered daily microaggressions, for all the fat, thin, black, Latina, Filipino nurses who endured abuse and humiliation in silence because they needed the job, for all the patients who were mistreated by a doctor too arrogant to admit a mistake." For the next 2 days, Claire worked 18 hours a day analyzing every surgery, every report, every complication, and he found a pattern. Marcus Holloway had a surgical complication rate 34% above the national average, 3 medical malpractice lawsuits mysteriously filed, 7 patient complaints that were never investigated, and a disturbing detail: he always operated on Thursday afternoons. Always. No exception. Claire crossed the data with his diary and found out. Thursday afternoons were when he would return from the golf club. He operated on human hearts after drinking Scotch whiskey with millionaire businessmen. She closed her laptop, leaned back in her chair, and let out a dry, humorless laugh. That arrogant idiot was playing with human lives, and she had all the proof. The following Monday, Claire returned to work. He entered the hospital with his head held high, his uniform impeccable, his steps firm. Colleagues looked askance. Some greeted him with sympathy, others looked away. She ignored everyone and went straight to the emergency room, and there he was, Marcus Holloway, leaning against the counter, laughing loudly with 2 residents, as if nothing had happened. He saw her, and the smile died. Claire walked past him without saying a word, but before turning the corner, he stopped and looked back. "Ah, Dr. Holloway," she said, voice sweet as poisoned honey. "I forgot to thank you." He frowned. "Thank you for what?" Claire smiled. "For underestimating me," and left, leaving him standing there with a bad feeling creeping up his spine, because Marcus Holloway was arrogant, spoiled, and cruel. But he wasn't stupid, and at that moment he realized that fat nurse hadn't given up. She had prepared herself, and the war was just beginning. The Medical Ethics Committee meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, 2 p.m., 10th floor conference room, glass walls overlooking the city, giant oval mahogany table, 6 black leather chairs occupied by senior doctors, administrators, and legal department representatives, and 2 empty chairs, one for the accused, another for the complainant. Claire arrived 15 minutes early, brown briefcase under her arm, nurse's uniform impeccable, hair tied into a tight bun. She greeted each committee member with a professional handshake and sat down. No one mentioned his weight. Nobody made a joke, because there, in that room, Claire Bennett was not the fat nurse. It was Claire Bennett, RN, BSN, an active member of the Ethics Committee with 3 years of impeccable service. Marcus Holloway arrived 2 minutes late. Expensive navy blue suit, Italian silk tie, perfectly combed hair, confident smile of someone who thinks he's going to get out of there without a scratch. He sat in the chair next to Claire without looking at her. Committee chairwoman Dr. Patricia Yoon, a 60-year-old Korean-American woman with a reputation for being as unyielding as steel, opened the session. "This meeting is to investigate serious allegations against Dr. Marcus Holloway, formally presented by Nurse Claire Bennett. Dr. Holloway, you have the right to have an attorney present. Do you wish to exercise that right?" Marcus shrugged, relaxed. "I don't need a lawyer, Dr. Yoon. This is a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Claire repeated quietly, opening the folder. He finally looked at her with that arrogant little smile. "Yeah, you were offended by a stupid joke and you're making a big deal out of it." "Joke," Claire said, taking the first document out of the folder. Interesting word choice. She slid the paper across the table towards Dr. Yoon. This is a copy of Medical Incident Report number 2847. 3 months ago, Dr. Holloway was performing heart bypass surgery on a 58-year-old patient. During the procedure, he accidentally severed the left coronary artery. Marcus went pale. That was an unforeseen complication. Unforeseen complication, Claire interrupted, voice calm but scalpel sharp, caused by hand tremor and lack of motor coordination. Which brings me to the second document. She slid out another sheet. Dr. Holloway's time record. He performed that surgery on a Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Exactly 2 hours after leaving the Oakmont Country Club where, according to the club's own records, he consumed 3 shots of Scotch whiskey. Absolute silence in the room. Marcus shifted in his seat. I wasn't drunk. That's ridiculous. Claire turned to him, eyes fixed. You're right, you weren't drunk, but you had 0.04% alcohol in your blood, below the legal limit for driving, but enough to affect fine motor coordination, enough to cut an artery you shouldn't cut. Robert Chen, the hospital's lawyer, leaned forward. How did you get this information? I couldn't. It's in the hospital's internal files, available to any member of the ethics committee. Claire kept her voice neutral. I just did my job. I read the reports that no one bothered to read. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. That's stalking. She's doing this because I made a joke about her weight. Dr. Yoon raised her hand, silencing him. Nurse Bennett, continue. Claire took a deep breath and took out the third document. Over the past 2 years, Dr. Holloway has performed 147 heart surgeries. Of those, 52 have had post-operative complications. This represents a 35.4% complication rate. The national average is 22%. She slid out a comparison table printed in color. Here's the complication rate of all the cardiologists at Mercy General. Dr. Holloway has the worst performance. And when I cross-referenced the data with the days of the week, she paused, letting the tension build. I discovered that 89% of his complications occur in surgeries performed on Thursday afternoons, exactly after lunches at the club of golf. Marcus stood, flushed with anger. That's a lie. You're making up numbers. I didn't invent anything. Claire remained seated, voice controlled. I just organized information that already existed, information that was ignored because you are beautiful, popular, and bring in million-dollar donations. Robert Chen frantically flipped through the documents, checking each number. Dr. Yoon took notes with an increasingly serious expression. Claire wasn't finished. And there's more, she said, taking out a fourth folder, this one thicker. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's employment case filed. She accused him of bullying, discrimination, and job sabotage. The case was dismissed for lack of evidence, but I found the evidence. She spread printed emails across the table. Texts from Marcus ridiculing Sarah in front of other doctors. Misogynistic comments about female competence. Deliberate orders to exclude her from important procedures. I contacted Dr. Mitchell, Claire continued. She agreed to testify officially if the committee reopens the investigation, and she gave me contacts for 3 other doctors who suffered the same treatment. Marcus was shaking now, sweat running down his forehead. Are you going to believe this? He stopped before releasing the insult, but everyone in the room understood what he was going to say. Claire stood up slowly, straightened her briefcase, and looked Marcus Holloway in the eyes for the last time. You called me fat in front of the entire emergency room. You used me as a joke to make yourself feel superior. You tried to destroy my career because I had the courage to talk back. She took a step towards him. But do you know what your fatal mistake was, Dr. Holloway? You assumed that I was stupid, that I was invisible, that I had no power. You underestimated me because I'm fat, and that was the stupidest mistake of your life. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. Claire turned to the committee. I have here complete documentation of 52 cases of medical malpractice, 3 irregularly filed cases, 7 ignored patient complaints, and evidence that Dr. Holloway operates under the influence of alcohol on a regular basis. All of this is available for full review. I have only asked for one thing, that the rules be applied equally, that he be judged by the same standards as any other professional would be. Dr. Yoon closed the folder, took off her glasses, and looked directly at Marcus. Dr. Holloway, you are suspended immediately from all surgical activities pending completion of the formal investigation. Your access to the operating room has been revoked, and you will answer to the Regional Board of Medicine. Marcus turned white. You can't do that. I can, and I did. Dr. Yoon stood up. This meeting is concluded. Claire left that room with her head held high, her steps firm, her heart pounding, but her face calm. In the hallway, he found Vanessa waiting, nervous. And there, Claire smiled. He fell. Vanessa screamed with joy and hugged her friend tightly. Other nurses who were nearby and who had suffered at Marcus's hands came over, crying, laughing, hugging Claire. Nobody talked about weight. Nobody talked about appearance. They only talked about justice. 3 days later, Marcus Holloway was officially fired from Mercy General Hospital. 2 weeks later, he temporarily lost his medical license. A month later, he was being sued by 3 former patients. And Claire Bennett? Claire was promoted to emergency nursing coordinator, received a proposal to lead the new ethics and patient safety program, and she was invited to speak at the National Conference on Hospital Protocols. The morning the promotion news was announced, Claire walked into the emergency room and found a note in the closet. Feminine, delicate handwriting. Thank you for being brave when we couldn't. You saved more than patients. You saved dignity. Sarah Mitchell. Claire folded the note, put it in her pocket, and smiled. Revenge had not been quick, but it had been surgical and absolutely devastating. 6 months after Marcus Holloway's fall, Claire Bennett sat in a conference room in San Francisco, in front of 300 healthcare professionals, stage with professional lighting, giant screen behind her displaying graphics about hospital safety protocols, crowded audience of doctors, nurses, administrators, and students. She wore a navy blue blazer over her white blouse, her hair loose on her shoulders, her posture erect, her voice amplified by the microphones. The culture of silence in hospitals kills more than disease, Claire said, walking across the stage with natural confidence. It kills patients, it kills careers, it kills dignity, and it only exists because powerful people count on our blind obedience. Applause echoed throughout the room. She clicked the remote control, and the screen showed an alarming statistic. 3–4% of serious medical errors occur due to a toxic hierarchy that prevents reporting. When I reported a senior doctor for negligence and abuse of power, I was told I should know my place, that I was just a nurse, that my fat body didn't deserve respect, so neither did my voice. She paused, letting the weight of the words settle. But do you know what I discovered? Knowing my place meant knowing my rights. It meant studying every protocol, every regulation, every legal loophole. It meant turning anger into strategy. The audience was mesmerized. Today that doctor no longer operates, not because I shouted, not because I caused a scandal on social media, but because I used the system against him, because I proved, with data, that arrogance and alcohol do not go well with a scalpel. Laughter and applause. Claire smiled, but the smile carried seriousness. And do you know what happened next? 3 of his other victims finally had the courage to speak out. 5 cold cases were reopened. 2 protocol changes were implemented at the hospital, all because a fat nurse decided she was no longer going to accept humiliation as the price of her job. Standing ovation. After the talk, Claire was surrounded by dozens of people wanting to talk, take photos, and ask for advice. Among them, a young Latina nurse of about 25 years old, eyes teary. I just wanted to thank you, she said, voice shaky. My boss humiliates me every day because of my accent. I've thought about quitting 1,000 times, but after I heard your story, I filed a formal complaint yesterday. Claire held her hands firmly. You did the right thing, and no matter what happens, you've already won, because you chose dignity over silence. The young woman cried and hugged Claire as if she were embracing hope. That night, back at her Oakland apartment, Claire made herself chamomile tea, sat on the old couch, and opened her laptop. I had 247 unread emails, invitations to lectures, job offers in prestigious hospitals, interview requests from medical journals, and one specific email that made your heart skip a beat. Sender, Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Claire clicked. Dear Claire, I have no words to thank you for what you did. After the case was reopened, I was able to obtain a financial settlement that covered all the debts I had accumulated during years of unemployment. Most importantly, I got my medical license back. I went back to surgery last week, a successful kidney transplant. I cried in the locker room afterwards because I thought I would never feel that pride again. You gave me my career back, my dignity, my life. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't. With eternal admiration, Sarah. Claire closed the laptop slowly, wiped the tears running down her face, and smiled. It was worth it. Every insult, every sleepless night organizing tests, every moment of fear, because she hadn't fought just for herself. I had fought for all the Sarahs, Vanessas, and young Latina nurses who deserved to work without fear. 3 months later, Claire received a call from Dr. Patricia Yoon. We have a proposal for you, she said, voice serious but warm. Mercy General wants to create a Department of Ethics and Patient Safety, full autonomy, own budget, independent investigative power, and we want you as director. Claire was silent, processing. Is this real? Completely real. Salary of $140,000 per year, full benefits, own team. You would have the power to investigate any professional at the hospital, including directors. Claire took a deep breath. I accept. In her first week as director of the new department, Claire implemented 3 revolutionary changes. 1. Anonymous reports must be investigated within 48 hours. 2. Quarterly training on respect, diversity, and healthy hierarchy. 3. Review committee composed of 50% nurses, 50% doctors. The resistance was brutal at first. Senior doctors complained of excessive bureaucracy. Administrators feared lawsuits and exposure, but Claire didn't back down an inch. And 6 months later, Mercy General had the lowest employment lawsuit rate in California. Employee turnover fell by 40%, and 3 different hospitals asked for consultancy to implement the same model. As for Marcus Holloway, he tried to rebuild his career in luxury private clinics, but the victims Claire helped find a voice sued him civilly and criminally. He lost his house in Malibu, lost the imported car, missed the wedding. The bride canceled everything 2 weeks before the ceremony, and he lost his medical license permanently after the regional council's final decision. Last time Claire heard from him, Marcus was working as a sales representative for medical equipment, selling products to hospitals where before he was treated like God. The fall had been long, public, and irreversible, exactly as he deserved. 2 years after the emergency room humiliation, Claire was organizing papers in the office when Vanessa walked in, holding her cell phone. "You need to see this." It was a video on Instagram, a nursing student recording herself, tears in her eyes, smile on her face. "I just passed the master's program that I thought I would never get, and I only had the courage to try because I heard Claire Bennett's story, the fat nurse who took down an arrogant doctor using intelligence, courage, and dignity." The girl wiped away her tears. If you're watching this and feeling small, invisible, undervalued, remember, your body doesn't define your competence, your weight doesn't define your value, and powerful people only have power as long as you accept silence. The video had 2.3 million views. Claire watched it 3 times, crying and laughing at the same time. "That," Vanessa said, hugging her friend, "that's legacy, Claire. You changed lives." That night, alone in the apartment, Claire opened the diary she had kept since she was a teenager. He leafed through old pages full of pain, shame, self-contempt. Then he opened a blank page and wrote, "At 38 years old, 250 pounds, and with a career that was almost destroyed by a cruel man, I learned 3 things. 1. The best revenge is not hate, it's competence. 2. People who underestimate you are giving you a strategic advantage. 3. Your body doesn't need to change for you to deserve respect. The world that needs it. I didn't lose weight. I didn't apologize. I didn't hide. I studied. I prepared myself. I attacked with surgical precision. And I won, not because I'm special, but because I refused to accept humiliation as fate." Claire closed the diary, looked out the window, and saw the city lit up below. Millions of people living complicated lives, fighting invisible battles, carrying pain that no one sees. And she knew with absolute certainty that some of these people were fat, underestimated, humiliated daily. And maybe, just maybe, her story would give one of them the courage to fight too, because in the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about dignity. It was about looking in the mirror and recognizing your own worth, regardless of what the world says. And that no one could take away from her. Never again. Arrogance always underestimates. Intelligence always wins. And dignity, no one takes that away from you, unless you allow it. Iwa Malas, if this story inspired you in any way, subscribe to the channel, because everyone deserves to remember that it doesn't matter how many pounds you carry. What matters is how much value you recognize in yourself. And that weight, this is immeasurable.